Greetings and welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, we are here with a random, hold on, there we go, random supporter stream, and I forgot to change the title of the stream here. Man, I'm sitting here for like 10 minutes messing around, and I forgot to change the title. We'll go ahead and fix that now. How's everybody doing?
Well, I'm feeling great.
I'm doing
Cool,
well.
very good.
Doing very well. Trying
All
to
right.
learn my new Apple iPhone XR. I had to grab my mic. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Let's see.
Apple has finally
malware.
won me over.
Apple has
kind of-
run you over. Man, this
I
is...
don't know about won me over complete. It's growing on me. Growing on me.
I might just have to boot you out of here, man. No,
Switch to Linux, let's switch to Mac.
yeah, man.
I'm running Fedora
Like,
on the
I-
workstation.
I think that Apple is
Right.
decent, but there's just too many things that it's getting progressively crazier.
Whoever took over since
Steve Jobs.
the guy that was the lead designer.
Oh,
They
Johnny
are
Ive.
doing drastically different stuff. It's a whole. They do stuff so radically different. It just takes time to get used to. It's not like any other phone, like Android or Windows, any computer. It's like nothing I've ever. I've just never had an iPhone or an Apple device. I've never owned one until recently, and it's a lot to get used to.
Yeah,
That's all.
there was a time I liked
therapy.
the Apple devices, but the problem is they became progressively more locked down and progressively more problematic. And so I'm just like, I keep around the minimum amount of Apple devices I have to test things for people. That's about it.
Well, and I'll be working on Apple machines and iPhones soon anyway.
Yeah,
And
for
I
you, it
wanted
makes a lot of
something
sense.
I wanted something for mission critical work that doesn't change. So I wanted something really stable and that doesn't change
Yeah.
for my phone, and then that way I can run whatever I want to Linux wise on my desktop.
With Apple,
Works
I mean, it'll be stable, but I'm not sure about the no change thing. I mean, they might get very courageous and not ship a charger. Of course, since Apple was
Right.
courageous and decided not to ship a charger, you guys wouldn't believe the update's coming this week. Samsung is going to get courageous too and not ship chargers as well.
What?
Oh,
It's like being brave
I
and
don't
getting rid of
really
the headphone
care.
jack.
I know. Well, Apple are, of course, on the next one are alleged to not even be shipping earbuds with it either. So you get your Apple device. That's about it. You have to buy earbuds, headphones, chargers, everything else, all extra, man. Come on. Why
It's
not?
because most people already have like Bluetooth headsets anyway.
Well, I mean, maybe,
Exactly.
but I would
Wireless
still like to
charging.
get a pair of headphones, particularly high quality headphones, when I spend $1,000 on a phone.
What are you gonna be? What are you
Well-
gonna be doing on that phone though? You're not doing music production on
Well-
your phone.
Yeah, but I
be
might
fair-
be doing music listening to on that phone.
Oh come on, that'll
My
be
XR
imminently forgettable.
My XR was $598, and they knocked like $70 some or something off the price of the phone. I got one heck of a deal. U.S. Cellular. They always get good signal in my area. I'm kind of in the sticks in North Carolina. That's all I'll say. I don't want to be too public with that, but this is a group that we can trust for the most part.
Going onto the internet live.
Going on there.
That's right. That's right.
Everybody who sees this after it goes live, we can trust
Well,
you.
I'm in
All right.
the sticks.
Let's see.
In some country somewhere. Yeah.
We got, I want to say hi to people that jumped in on the
Go ahead,
comments,
yeah.
listen in. Ash and Snap, greetings. Yanni is here and also joining us. Jonathan, how's it going there? Note to Linux Mint users, upgrade instructions have been posted on the Linux Mint website, so if you are into that. Of course, I do always recommend if you're running like 19, don't upgrade to 20 right away. Unless you are
They know what
dealing
I'm
with a
gonna say.
specific issue, I always generally recommend not to push the upgrade paths, especially too early. Let's see. FairNOS, greetings. Can finally work on the major updater again. There you go. All right. Upgraded system Linux Mint 20 as well. No problem so far. Very good. Did a clean install a week ago. All right. Have to feed the kitty. That's right. Meow. Kitty's down here. He's like, I know sometime the next hour I'm going to get some kitty treats. Is he nearby? Oh, he is nearby. He's over there.
Darko's got it right.
Yeah, he's chilling. I need to find me some more quadruple A batteries. My laser pointer is running a little low, so bummer. Might have to order some. Let's see. Try the easy Arch Live ISO. The kitty's down. He's like, "You're talking about me, aren't you?" Yes, kitty. We're talking about you. My other cat's smart. If I start using the laser pointer, she comes up and sniffs the laser pointer itself. She's like, "Really? Like, cat? You're supposed to play with the laser dot on the floor, not come and sniff my pointer." But she likes to sniff my pointer instead. She's too intelligent. Let's see. My terminal root, GUI installer. All right. Let's see. Get word when rolling distros don't have an update in a long time. You're right. Oh, if you're running Debian, don't worry about it. They never updates. KDE version of MX Linux in the works. Ooh, I didn't notice that. Hello, DT. Greetings. Let's see. Cat on vacation. I know. I did tell the kitty to flee. He's on vacation on Mars. He's like, dude, I ain't going down to that planet for a while. I know I'm your handler and all, but I ain't going down there for a while. So, I did see a picture the other day. Do you guys see the picture? It's a meteor and a alien spaceship off in the distance. It says, "You first." No, you first.
Yeah.
I don't blame them, not at all.
Yeah, they're all sitting there going, "No, I don't think I want to go near that mess of weirdos."
What do you think about? I'll let everybody say hey. That's not said hey yet. World of Linux. Hey, World of Linux. How you doing?
Good. Very good.
Chargers and earblood are bloat. DT, do you agree? You're the bloat master. Are chargers and earbuds bloat? All right, I got down to the bottom of
Yes,
saying
I
hi to
think so.
everybody. So
I actually think so.
all right,
I could argue that if I wanted to, but
Oh
Too lazy.
man, Mark's coming around.
all
It's
right,
getting corrupted.
all right. Well, we kind of started talking about a little bit of Apple stuff. Should we continue and chat about the Apple and the ARM and things like that before we dive onto anything else random?
Yeah, I'm testing. I'm testing the new beta software, the latest version of macOS Big Sur,
Okay.
and it's a big change.
sir.
Big change, and so far I'm actually quite annoyed. Like
Really?
sometimes I'm fine with it, but I'm quite annoyed with the icons just completely changing, and it just looks off.
I'm one of the 3 people in the world who loves the new icons, because I don't know if anybody else remembers this, but in the mid 2000s there was this iconography design ethos where they called it crystal, where everything had this kind of shininess to it, like it was light on one side and dark on the other.
Yeah.
It was popular with open source stuff, and it was kind of a Vista-esque but looked nicer. That's what these icons look like. I saw these icons and I immediately fell in love, and I was like, oh, it's these are the icons.
So they're
These
kind
are
of
the
going
icons.
back to the skeuomorphism a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit in some ways, yeah.
You know, I pulled it. I pulled up the icon list picture there, and it looks like most of them, for the most part, are fairly similar. They're consistently now more, more of the rounded square. Many of them actually look pretty much identical, with maybe a few things throwing a bit of skeuomorphism in there.
Yeah, it's not a lot. I mean, like I said,
definitely more
they've added some
consistent.
shine to some of them a little bit, but it's not.
Yeah,
It's not
That's
egregious.
that
I
was
can't
a
wait
big
for-
criticism back when Apple, when I had my first, I had an iPad and an iPhone running iOS 6. It was absolutely unequivocally gorgeous, very nice looking. And then they went with Johnny Ives apparently dated a unicorn or something and spewed forth unicorn poo all over it and turned it into these flat rainbow gradients.
Oh, the rainbows.
And I don't mind the rainbows, just not on my OS, man. And then they went with all the flat design. And one of the things they did is they removed all that
Cues from
skeuomorphism out.
Microsoft.
Well, actually, Apple did it first. And then what happened is they forgot that in designing websites and stuff, like in basic design, the skeuomorphism isn't there to be cool in 3D. The skeuomorphism is actually there to provide a contrast so you can see it. So when Apple made that change, you lost any contrast on your
Correct.
wallpaper. And so
Correct.
basically it made a lot of things harder to read. So it's good that they're turning a turn back. It does actually, I do agree with some people, it does actually in many ways look like Deepin.
Yeah, it's
I
just
think it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
it's just odd because usually Mac has a particular style that I'm used to, and then now it looks more like a Linux distro more than anything. Like especially the way that I customize things. So
And how's that bad?
I was about to say, I'm not hearing
How's
any
that a bad
downside
thing?
here.
not bad. It's just I need to get used to it, right? When there's a change and where
Yes,
everything
sir.
is.
Ooh.
Understand.
There's a picture of the old skeuomorphic. See, I liked that old skeuomorphic. I
I
thought
love
it
the
was
old
Yes.
skeuomorphic, man.
I
You'll
just
never
looked
convince
at
me
it.
that wasn't the best.
it was just it looked amazingly good, and that's why I kind of like it. Although
Yeah.
the default gnome skeuomorphic stuff that we have looks like trash, but yeah, the old Apple stuff was
Yeah,
really
but the
good.
GNOME 2 stuff looked great, man. Like the old
Yeah.
Ubuntu stuff looked awesome.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like the
definitely.
mocha icons. The
I don't
paper
know how I
icons.
started with Mac. Like, okay, I guess Mac Big Sur. Now I'm on to like Mac burgers or something. Big Macs now. It's about time to switch back to the thing there. We're on the Big Macs.
Not the Mac I was
Um,
talking about.
Yeah. I'm telling you what.
Yup.
But
Uh,
now I'm hungry. I just want to go get a Big Mac now or something. I don't know. When's the last
Mac
time I had
is-
McDonald's? It's been a while.
Farron OS Dev is throwing out some fighting words in chat.
Oh, is he?
says
Is he? Oh
it
man,
looks
do I
like the
have to jump
Chinese
over?
take on Mac OS.
Oh, ouch.
Shots fired.
Wow.
but
He is
yeah,
not happy with it.
yeah. What they're trying to do is
Mac and cheese makes me
kind-
blood.
kind of making Mac OS and iOS be together, but they still want
Yeah.
to be Mac like the Mac.
Yeah.
So what they're
All
planning
right.
to do is changing all the icons so it looks like iOS, and then when they switch to Apple Silicon, they're going to be running iOS apps, so they want everything consistent.
Yeah, and I hate that they're doing that, but I do understand and recognize that is the way of the future, whether we fight it or not. And me and Tom have our reasons, I'm sure. I don't know that that's wise. I feel like a computer should run a computer OS, and a mobile device should have a mobile OS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that because they're
They're not
designed for two
convenient.
different things. I'm not going to sit here and edit a video on an iPhone.
No.
Okay.
No, absolutely not.
And I'm not going to write a book on one either. I know, guys, if you
No.
guys were unaware, like author trivia, 50 Shades of Grey was actually written on a BlackBerry on the author's commute. Literally, she wrote the whole book on a BlackBerry. I would not want to be sitting on the seat after she was done writing that book. I gotta say, but at the same
It's supposed to
time,
be family friendly.
I'm telling you. Yeah, so she wrote the whole thing there. But I mean, that's not where I wrote one blog post once on an iPad, and it was a horribly miserable experience. But yeah, that's kind of the case. All right. So other than the style and the design, the ARM processor, this is a big question that I keep getting as well. So on this new Macs having the ARM-based processors, basically the first thing is, hey, Boot Camp no longer supported. You guys using Boot Camp? Yeah, you're out of luck. So it's caused a big question. Should we?
Who's
It's
doing
about
that
time.
anyway.
Yeah, it's about time to switch to Windows then. Switch to Linux.
I was like, who would bother running boot camp on a Mac anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Most Mac users I know switched to Mac because they didn't like how Windows handled stuff. So,
Correct.
because
Yeah.
since Mac
Correct,
is
it's
the
the
lesser evil, they still want to use their Adobe Creative Suite, especially. They just didn't
Yeah.
switch to Mac.
Well, that's a valid
Yeah.
reason to switch to Mac. If you absolutely have to use the Adobe Creative Suite for, I mean, maybe you have a specific job that absolutely unequivocally has to use that. You can't get around it at all.
my dad.
Then and you think Windows is of the devil, Mac is an option. Mac's an option for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, at least for me, I used to use Windows for lots of stuff, especially in school for Microsoft Word. So, so what I decided is that instead of only using one platform, I would be using Linux and Mac OS kind of together. So I have
Mhm.
Mac OS for at least running Microsoft Word and just getting applications
Yeah.
that I can only get on that particular platform, and the rest of my things are on Linux.
Yeah.
And it works pretty well because I figured that one platform isn't enough for everything that you do. If you're just web browsing, most likely Linux will just do fine. But especially for what I do, I need different applications that actually goes on multiple platforms, and it's kind of a little bit crazy. So I need to
Yeah.
use more than one platform.
Yeah, I think like if you're an employee, you kind of have to use what they say to use. For me, being able to run my own stuff, I mean, people will disagree. I think GIMP is better than Photoshop in many cases. In fact, just I had to work on a project for somebody right now, and they sent me their logo, which is plastered on the back of a big scene, like a big landscape scene, and I had to extract just the logo out of it. GIMP, in Photoshop, I was able to extract it because I was working on the Windows computer on that. In Photoshop, I was able to extract it, but it was jaggy. It just wouldn't extract well. I just jump over to GIMP in 5 minutes. I had the whole thing extracted perfectly. I mean, it's just like so much easier. Yeah. I want to stop real quick. Page Plant, thank you for the super chat. Linux is getting more noticed. My sister's also installing Linux thanks to our community. Very awesome. Very awesome indeed. Thank you for that. All right. Anyone else want to jump in with anything else?
Apple is definitely taking cues from Linux with design.
Yeah, so's Windows. Isn't it funny? Windows and Apple are both.
Yeah, really and truly. And Windows is, so tied in with Ubuntu now, which is one reason why I kind of jumped Ubuntu. But for a gateway distro, it still makes sense.
Yes.
What I was going to ask,
Yeah.
I had a burning question for Tom.
Good.
If you step back and remove all emotion and all feeling and just approach it for how it is, what do you think about Apple's stance on privacy and security? Do you think it's in large part marketing, or do you think, even if it's marketing, do you not feel that they're still far more secure than Windows?
Well, between the two, if I had to use Apple or Windows from a privacy standpoint, I think Apple is definitely better from the privacy standpoint. That being said, the devices respect the settings easier. They're not going to override your host file. Windows will override your host file if you're trying to block Windows-specific things. And but here's the warning, is that when you are syncing your Mac data to an iCloud account, that is not end-to-end encrypted. So it's encrypted to going from your device to their device, so nobody's going to interfere or intercept. But on their servers, they have the encryption key to see those servers. So anything on your iCloud account can be subpoenaed by law enforcement. But overall, you can turn that feature off. If you turn that off to sync that anything to any cloud accounts or anything, or just not have cloud accounts on your Apple at all, then I think Apple is the better choice of just those two on privacy alone.
Yeah, I'll be using. I'm not going to use iCloud. I'm going to cut that off. I don't need it.
Yeah.
I'll be using Spider Oak personally for my personal stuff, and then I've got MSP360 that I use for my business.
All right.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is that first, when you buy a Mac, you definitely don't have to even sign in inside an Apple ID. You can just skip it and just Mac without an Apple ID. So you don't have to have Siri and sync and everything.
Which you can do in Windows as well, but they're making it harder and harder and harder to skip that.
I've only figured out, the only way I've been able to figure out how to do that in Windows is to actually disconnect it from the internet. Never connect to Wi-Fi. Don't connect an Ethernet cable.
It's about 1 point font in almost the same color on the background. You got to look with a magnifying glass to see it, but you can skip the stuff.
Are you serious?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's not 1 point. It's like 2 point. I mean, it's there. You just really have to hunt for it.
All right, so I had to
wiggle your mouse over. I think it's to the lower left. Just wiggle your mouse over and see if you get the pointer change.
Okay. I was like, because I just redid my Windows 10 box, and there was the only option I had was sign in with your Microsoft account or create a new one, and there was no create an offline account option.
However, if you are doing a developer's preview, you have to use a Microsoft account. Just an FYI.
No, I'm not doing that. I had a
Yeah. Last
haven't-
I knew, I think there was one version where they left that out and it caused a lot of backlash. But who knows? Maybe they changed it again because I didn't look up what the latest version is. So,
So
anybody else
yeah.
install it recently?
Recently, at least Windows, yeah, at least on my virtual machine. So for college, and especially, at least for work, I just have a Windows virtual machine that runs on my Mac, and it's isolated, so I don't share folders or anything. But the latest update literally had a big pop-up, really making it hard to not have a Microsoft account. So each update, they're really gonna try to push you to get a Microsoft account. Well, Apple has none of that.
Why?
Like, none of it.
That's not a thing. So what you said.
Yeah, but the reason why that I really use Apple, at least Mac OS, is because it's a Unix system, and because it's a Unix system, it's very similar to Linux and FreeBSD and OpenBSD, and they share a lot of the same tools. So when I go inside the terminal for Linux, and I import all the commands to Mac OS, it's literally identical. So that's why so I'm not using Windows as a primary desktop, but I'm using Mac OS and Linux together with like synergy and sharing files between it, and it works really well.
Perfect. That's kind of the route I want to go to. I want to get off of Windows and get the next step is I've actually got to do some stuff for the channel, but I would like to at some point get, as bad as I hate to get a MacBook, I think I'd rather have an iMac than a MacBook because MacBooks have really poor hardware engineering. Even though I've got one, it's like ancient. But like I don't know, maybe I could get a Yosemite or something running on it.
Yeah, well, I got what's mine? I think a 2014 MacBook Air, I think, which is pretty good actually, and it's running Sierra, I think.
Yeah,
I think the MacBook Airs must have been better than the MacBook Pros. It's Lewis Rossman pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, he's had several come in. Of course, all the devices he gets, I'm sure people have used them.
Yeah, well, the newer ones too are worse off than the older ones. The older ones were built solid. It's like I have a Mac Mini as well, which is really solid, I think.
The Mac Mini is a good stepping stone for me. I was kind of thinking about that. The latest Mac Mini.
That's what I got. I got the latest Mac Mini.
So I have a late 2012 iMac that I repaired, literally removed the screen, put an SSD inside of it, and it works just fine. And I bought a MacBook Air 2017, the last version before they switched to the new design and everything.
Yeah.
And those two Macs are working quite fine, and I know how to repair them, even soldering and things. So for me, repairing them and doing whatever, for me, works. Now, the newer models have a lot of problems, and I can definitely say about that. It's not about the T2 chip, it's literally just the design of it. And that's why Apple wants to go with ARM, because of how Intel is kind of lacking behind in the technology. So that's why that with Apple Silicon, they're going to be able to actually use the same design as they have right now and just put their chip, and there's not going to be any problems of overheating, which a lot of those Macs have.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, that's why they're switching to ARM, really.
I think going with ARM is a really good business move. I think it's wise. I think it's going to take time for them to saturate the market with ARM devices, and they're smart to do it quickly over a period of 2 years, relatively quickly when you're dealing with corporations and stuff. As much of a good business move it is, and I can tell you why, but I won't go into detail there. ARM has been around, and they're very trusted in other devices, but I think they're going to be kicking themselves in about 2 to 3 months or so because Intel is about to compete with AMD again.
Ha! No.
And it's looking the new Intel chips are looking pretty dang good.
No.
Yeah, but AMD will come up with another one like a day before, be like, yeah, we're
No,
better.
AMD is about to switch to 5 nanometer, and Intel is struggling to get their 10 nanometer working right. I mean, they're not even predicting that they're going to be competitive again. And this is according to Intel's own executives until 2023. By that point, it's like, yeah, like
Good.
it's not even going to be a thing.
That's a big problem, and that's why Apple wants to get away from Intel.
Trust me, if Apple thought at all that Intel was going to be able to improve in the next 1 to 2 years, they would have stuck with Intel.
Yes,
But
right.
it's not going to
So
be a thing.
Yeah.
the whole point of why they switched from PowerPC to Intel was because that Intel at the time performed way better than their current processors, but now
Performance
Intel has
per
been
watt.
performance per watt, and then they
Yeah.
just slowed down until recently because the transistors and how they made them didn't become smaller, and it caused a lot of probably heating issues because Apple kind of pushes Intel processors way more in their computers, and that's why that a lot of people have overheating.
I
because they
think
do some
Intel,
modifications.
Apple dropping Intel is definitely going to hurt Intel pretty bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
that's
let's
their biggest customer.
let's discuss this though, just off the cuff. Just how does Apple switching to ARM? How's it going to benefit Linux? Since this is the Linux channel.
Yeah.
Well, I think it plays into where they're converging, for better or for worse, they're converging like World of Linux has said, and the younger generation is more prepared for this than me and Tom. If you're 30 years or over, you probably don't want to see this happen. But the
Speak for yourself.
converging of the mobile iOS with like Big Sur and kind of making everything kind of one OS for all. And it's going to play into it because also with the cloud applications, most everything that people do for business these days, unless you're Tom, because I understand where he's getting at and why he doesn't do it this way, but they use SaaS, software as a service. So a lot of the work they do is in the browser, and it connects to servers and everything.
Yeah. And that's kind of problematic.
Devices no longer need the latest and greatest or the highest end hardware. They're going to become more thin clients, and that is, you take a very lightweight portable device like the iPad Pro, and you have an ARM chip inside. It can run more efficient with power, and it'll get everything you need to do done because a lot of the processing power is coming from a remote server anyway, in a data storage, in a server. What do you call it?
Server rack.
Server
rack.
Server farm. Yeah. Data center. Data center is the word I was looking for. Same thing. Yeah. So a lot of that processing power and the computing power is coming from that. So with that said, with the convergence of the mobile OS into the computing full-blown laptop and desktop computer OS workstation, you're gonna see a push toward more of a non-repairability as well, to where you're just gonna buy it, use it up, and then get a new one. And that's the way you're gonna not be able to change your RAM and storage soon. And that's already a thing on some devices.
It's already a thing for a lot of
yeah. And I the reason I reject that model in general is because I've had to use that before. In every academic institute I was in, it was an empty shell model where all of your work is being done on the on the network connection, and it does not give you a good user experience. But people are being trained for that poor user experience, and you're just like, oh, this is just a computer, and everything we do is somewhere else. And I think that in Linux, we still reject that model. And so I think that this will probably drive up Linux just a little bit, in that a lot of the people that wanted to use, for example, Boot Camp to do your Windows type stuff on the Mac, they're not going to be able to as much. And I think it might actually cause a few more people to be looking at Linux. Not a whole ton, but a little bit.
I prefer native applications whenever possible.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, of course. But at least for ARM, since that ARM, at least the architecture, in many ways are way better than what Intel and even AMD can do. when it's performance per watt. That's why the Apple is switching in the first place, because they can use the same design and just put their chips inside of it. Another thing is Linux already has an ARM port, and Raspberry Pis and a bunch of other computer uh, kits that you can get are already on ARM processors. So
Now-
if Apple does the transition, I still don't know if Apple's going to even allow Linux on their machines yet.
Yeah, they will.
Still have to wait.
I don't know
Yeah,
about
but
hardware wise.
There's
Yeah.
actually I did come across an article today. I forgot to pull it up here, but I did come across an article today that even at their developers conference, Apple was actually showing how to run Linux on the ARM processor.
Okay, good. Very
So
good.
yeah, I mean it's
I
it's
thought-
doable.
I thought I was
I think it
gonna say.
requires an extra piece of software, but you can still do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So at least for running Linux on ARM processors, that's going to be great, because Apple
Yeah,
knows.
stellar.
We're already there, except Ubuntu, and who cares? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, Linux
Leonie,
has been
Open
doing
source
it.
going on, I'm good.
Leonie, did you have something to jump in there?
So my I think Apple will gonna sue me for saying this, but there's this nifty script collection called macOS Simple KVM, and they're currently able. So this like tool chain is currently able to emulate a full-blown Mac, with up to, I think, macOS Catalina, and I think they may have an issue like emulating ARM. I mean, it's still running through QEMU, which in theory could emulate ARM, but I think since QEMU kind of emulates a generic ARM chip, it may be incompatible with the newer macOS versions that will be so completely based on ARM. So that's gonna be a huge problem. And also in general, the Hackintoshing scene will just kind of laugh at Apple, because since the macOS kernel is open source, they just have to kind of take that source code and compile a custom kernel for x86 processors. And since there's some sort of backwards compatibility or unification going on, it will still be compatible for, I would say, decades to come. So it's kind of odd, but
Yeah.
also a power move from Apple.
I say that makes sense.
Yeah, so even my game PC is a Hackintosh, so it runs Linux, it runs Windows, it runs Mac OS High Sierra at least on it. So my game PC is a AMD Hackintosh. To get everything running wasn't too complicated, but you need to know how to do it. But at least for Hackintoshing, nobody should be worrying about Apple making Hackintoshing very difficult just yet, because they still have to support Intel-based Macs for years to come. If they just stop right now, a lot of people are going to get pissed.
Yeah, well,
Exactly.
yeah, I guess that's probably the case. But
So,
yeah, eventually though they will die down. But like in the tech world though, it'll die down pretty quick, and they'll get to the point like, okay, well we can
That's
kill it
tech
all
world.
off now.
We'll adapt.
Next phase
Yeah.
after they switch over to ARM, you are going to start to see channels like Bitwit, Paul's Hardware, Jay's 2 Cents, Barnacle Nerdgasm. You're going to see these guys actually building out custom build PCs with ARM processor chips.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Factor.
Quick
I can't
question.
wait.
I did not get a
That's gonna
chance
be
to
fun.
look this up. Will the new Raspberry Pi be able to boot off USB as well, or just SD card still?
They just announced that they
Yeah.
added USB
Yes.
booting
I
support like 2 or 3
Thought
days
about
ago.
that, because I'll tell you what, I was looking at that latest Raspberry Pi, and I'm like, I think I want to buy one. Dude,
Yeah, me
that thing
too.
is better than my Arch computer here, the big desktop. I mean, it's
Raspberry
like,
Pi,
what?
sweet.
Dual,
Go for it.
like, was it like dual 4K outputs? I think. Let me
Go for
let's
it.
pull up the specs for that guy.
Do it.
HDMI.
Come on, do it.
Let me
That
pull
is
up
so
the specs
freaking
for that.
worth it.
It
So-
is like, and it's like $70. It's like $75, I think. That's
75.
There's
Totally
a guy
awesome.
who took a whole so you can do. I didn't know you could do this with Raspberry Pis, but you can get them on basically the little on RAM modules, and you just stick them in a board, like there's like 7 of them in a row, and so you can create this like little virtualization server that's like the size of a credit card. I was like, that's what I want to do.
So
Eli,
we
the computer
have
guy's doing a lot of this.
gigabit Ethernet, USB 3, 2 more USB 2 ports, 2 micro HDMI supporting dual 4K displays.
Get a link or what model is this?
USB-C. This is the latest Raspberry Pi. Just go to raspberrypi.org. Go to products. It's just like, what? I gotta see what the processor is.
RAM.
15 watt USB-C power supply recommend. So the thing is, though, is it does require a whole lot more power. That's true. I'm gonna see if I can find the
compared to what, a desktop, like your typical Intel
well,
desktop?
no, compared to my 2 amp Raspberry Pi 2B, you know. And okay, so literally the board itself, I think. Let's see, just the basic. Wait, hold on. Okay, 8 gig. Okay, so the Pi board itself, 8 gig, is $75.
So you're talking about the Pi, what? The Pi 4?
The Pi 4, yes, the Pi 4 8 gigabyte one.
Yeah, and 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's going to be plenty for Raspberry Pi.
I'm not seeing what's the processor there though. Okay, let's see. Hardware decoding, video hardware decoding up to 4K 60 frame per second. Wow, dual band 2.45 gig wire, Bluetooth LAN. Like I wish I could get one without the wireless LAN on it though.
I think they still use this sort of like all-winner like generic ARM SoC stuff. Or did they just switch to another like company that does the chips for them?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't find info on the processor itself.
It's Broadcom. I'm sure it's definitely a Broadcom ARM processor.
Broadcom makes actual CPUs. I know they make the like cellular SoCs and wireless, but I didn't know they actually made CPUs.
They do actually.
Yeah, the Raspberry Pi 3, I literally bought one for a friend, and it literally had Broadcom on it. It literally had the model number.
This
and
is
everything. So,
BR0A0C0M. And if that's the last letter, I don't know. I must need glasses or something. But
yeah.
Yeah, but
those chips are really powerful and very tiny, but they have to put a heat sink, technically like a metal heat sink on top of it to dissipate the heat. So if you would definitely be doing and using it all the time, you might as well buy a case for it and put a fan on top of it to keep it cool. Like, you can run it without a fan, but as we know, all processors are not good with heat, and especially how Raspberry Pi is small. If it gets enough heat, at some point, it could actually damage it, right? And
I don't believe in fanless designs. I don't.
There we are.
I don't believe
okay, so
Wikipedia for
this is a Broadcom. Broadcom 2711 quad-core Cortex A72 ARM V8 64-bit at 1.5 gigahertz. So that's a quad-core processor on Raspberry
Even
Pi.
though Raspbian is most of the time 32-bit. Yeah. I mean, you can crank it up to like 64-bit, but it's out of the box just a 32-bit, which is kind of like bad if you have 8 gigs of RAM and can just address like 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Raspbian, of course, is good for Raspberry Pi, but they're trying to keep compatibility with all the other Raspberry Pis, so that no matter if you have the very first generation or the latest one, Raspbian would work. But if you have a Raspberry Pi 4, might as well just get out of Raspbian and just put something else on it, ARM-based.
Yeah, I did say earlier about ARM and Ubuntu, but I believe Ubuntu Mate actually still has an ARM build, right?
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. OpenSUSE, Fedora, Manjaro,
Ubuntu.
Does Ubuntu have an ARM?
I think
the server
version. Ubuntu Mate. Does it have one?
Based.
Ubuntu Mate and the server version of Ubuntu recently got an ARM version.
Oh, okay.
For the Pi 4.
Okay.
Yeah, but not Ubuntu by itself. Ubuntu is getting like completely crazy they're removing 32-bit libraries. They're just
Yeah.
switching everything to Snap. It's making it so difficult to do even the most basic things on it. Of course, you have the terminal, but then they remove the ability to do most of your things that you would typically do on Linux Mint or any other Linux distribution, and that is not a good thing.
You know,
This is
Ubuntu
what-
is becoming Microsoft.
Yeah,
They're
They're
becoming
partnering
just
with
like
Microsoft.
Microsoft.
We had a question earlier I
ahead,
wanted
I'm
to dive into real quick. File sharing. It was up here a while ago. I had it highlighted and then it just kind of, disappeared.
I
on
think
my-
somebody said,
sharing?
"Is it safe? Is file sharing
Yeah,
safe?"
is file sharing safe? All right, what are your guys' thoughts?
If you,
Depends on the ISP, actually.
you
Well,
mean like within your own home or what?
That's yeah. There's nothing else
Yeah.
specified, so I would answer that. I mean, between my own home and my
Yeah.
own internal network, absolutely no problem. If I'm
Yeah.
sharing it out through something, it depends on what I'm using to do that, and then we have
Yeah.
to balance privacy versus security. So
yeah.
Get those
if I wanted to
SSL
share
shares,
something, I
TLS.
just do it on my Nextcloud
ahead.
server, which is well encrypted.
Mm,
That's what
yeah,
I'm.
that's the thing. So
SFTP.
it all depends on the operating system you use. If you use Windows, most likely there's always going to be some sort of security vulnerability that might happen. If you're on Mac
Number.
OS, if you're on
Yeah,
Mac
yeah.
OS, you're going to be fine. However, I would still consider using like a VPN. Then use a
Yeah.
file sharing that actually
Mhm.
has end-to-end encryption.
Well,
Because
Yeah.
using it by
It'll
itself
tunnel it.
without a VPN or anything to back it up, if ever something gets compromised, well, then you only have one layer. Well, I like to have multiple layers of security instead of only one, just to make sure. I don't trust
Yeah.
only one thing, because OneDrive and Google Drive say that they're secure and everything, but even though that is true, there's probably a possibility that might fail in the future. They might find a vulnerability somewhere. That always happens, especially with like Dropbox and other things like that. So multiple layers of security is always
if you're
good.
just talking about sharing a single file here and there,
Yeah,
Mozilla's file sharing application is actually pretty cool. There's also
yeah,
the one through Tor as well. Is that
Yeah.
Tor Share or something? Onion Share.
Yeah,
It's
you can-
called Onion Share. Yeah.
yeah.
If
You can
you
use
have-
that.
If you
too.
have a little extra income and you want like a really trustworthy like business grade solution, Spider Oak has like synchronization and all the typical features, and they'll sync you to the cloud, and then they'll sync across all your machines. If you're looking for a free solution that is like Linux friendly, try Sync Thing. It's pretty good. It's really simple and easy to set up. As far as make sure that there should be some settings within the Sync Thing interface when you create a login, that you can secure it that way to a little. I don't know
Yeah.
how secure that is, but it should be more secure.
Yeah,
than
another
average.
another one that I do use is Mega. Not for everything, but use
Mega,
it for
yeah, it's
music
good.
and stuff. Yeah, Mega is pretty
great.
good. And when you look at Mega and their history, they're really privacy focused. Even though it's free, but of course there's limitations. All right, they really want you to get their plans, but I'm
Of
only
course,
using
yeah.
it for sharing a couple of things, and it's definitely secure. And I
Give
know
you
it
a little
is.
bit. They give you a little bit for free. They don't charge anything for like. It's not a whole lot. It's like 5 gigs or 10 gigs or something. Which I mean,
got
for some people, it works.
I got 50 gigabytes, which
Oh,
for
do they
me
do
is
50 now?
plenty. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
plenty for me, and it's
Nice.
free. Of course, I do get ads about their Mega stuff,
Yeah.
but it's very secure for what it is.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
not every file sharing will do that. That's only
Right.
the ones that actually do work and are reliable. But especially with Google Drive, OneDrive, and probably most of them, they're not secure at all, or they might have some sort of backdoor or anything like that.
Spider
Yeah.
Oak and Mega are both cross-platform and will work with Linux.
Right.
They're great options. One caveat with Spider Oak: if you're someone that doesn't like to set master password hints, if you lose your password, you need to remember your password hint,
Oh
or
yeah.
that's it. You're locked out. You ain't getting your data back
Yeah,
unless
like
you can talk to them and they'll help you migrate your data over to a new account. But
yeah,
it's a lot of downtime.
like Mega. Like Mega also has something similar that you need to make a
Yeah,
backup key in order to get stuff, but at least ensures that everything is secure in the first place and they can't read anything. Which the reason why is
yeah,
because of DMCA and how they don't want to be liable for any copyrighted stuff,
right.
especially with the history of Mega uploads. So they decided to just encrypt everything, so they don't
Yep.
have any liability, and that's how their business runs now. Because back in the day, Mega Upload got shut down because a lot of people used it to share illegally
Yes.
download music and things like that, and Mega had to figure out
I wouldn't
a
even
way
mention that. It scares people.
a way
They're
to
excellent. They're
yeah,
excellent.
a
They're
way
really
to
good.
not be liable. So
Yeah.
instead, they just went completely privacy, just encrypted everything, and now
Yep.
they figured out a solution to not be liable for anything because it's it actually belongs to you instead of them. So
Mega got clean. They cleaned up, and they really have put a good face and a good front. A good
yeah,
front. That don't seem right. They put a good. They could have put a good foot forward, and they're really doing great business. And
yeah,
one of the very best cloud providers out there is Mega.
yeah,
Absolutely. Spider Oak has zero knowledge, and that's kind of the same principle as I would assume that Mega is operating on. With that, Tom has mentioned this in the past. Whatever service you use, you kind of want to make sure that they can't actually see the data. So that's where
yeah,
the end-to-end encryption comes into play.
yes.
You don't want
Also,
their employees to be able to look at your data.
yeah, also another thing, if ever that you do need to use Google Drive or anything like that,
Yeah,
and if you even can, you could use some sort of thing like Vericrypt or some sort of
yeah.
encryption thing that actually encrypts your files, where you can put a password on LibreOffice or
Hmm.
something like that. And then the other end, somebody could probably decrypt it or something like that. And because some of my friends still use Google Drive or even use Dropbox, and I have to use it. And at least the least I can do is put a password on it,
Yeah,
and that's kind of
yeah.
the only thing that I can do. But at
That'll
least
and
for
that'll keep most of your
yeah,
script kiddies. 90% of hackers are
yeah,
kids on the internet. Really, 95% of hackers really are not even that all that dangerous. They just want to goof around. But like the 5% is the ones you got to worry
yeah,
about, and those are more targeted attacks than anything else.
yeah.
Like if
So
they
it's
want to hack you specifically.
yeah, that's the thing. So not
Mm.
every file sharing service is going to be trustworthy, but
Right.
some of them are actually pretty good by the fact that you actually have the encryption key, and they can't even read anything that happens on their server.
Yes. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
OneDrive did something like File Vault, but the reason why I don't trust it at all is how differently it's just odd. You put a master password and you go inside the vault, which technically would be secure, but it's all inside their systems.
Yeah.
So usually I would think that there would be a back door, but
Yeah. If
that's
they
just
if
Yeah.
they if they retain the master, you're the only one that should
yeah,
not ever know your master password. They can't, like Spider Oak on their end, they cannot see your master password.
yeah.
And there's two-factor authentication as well, I believe now, and all
Mm,
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
should have 2FA now.
mm. So, at least for sharing a whole lot of information,
When
yeah,
you go ahead, you're
yeah.
fine.
So, at least Mega for me works just fine. Of course, that I do use iCloud. Of course, Drive for my documents, but the difference is that I don't put everything on the iCloud at all. I don't put my photos. I don't put
Right,
usually my notes and contacts.
right.
I only put some documents that I really want to keep, but not important like very important documents where it has some personal information. It's mostly like PowerPoint presentations
Yeah.
and just documents, essays, and whatever. And it's not like Apple or anything anyone else would actually care. So that's why I just put it on iCloud, and it's really easy to just get on it. But
Yeah,
of
for stuff
course,
that's not personal identifiable, that's fine. Yeah, for the most
yes,
part, it's secure enough. Yeah,
secure enough. But
yeah,
for something that really has a personal information, you need to look at other alternatives.
yes,
That's not mostly mainstream.
agreed, 100%. We're on the same page with everything there.
Yeah.
Two FA. With that, make sure if you can avoid using your phone number, try and do so. Even if you have to use it, like use it and then get rid of it, if they'll let you do that. So many services online now, whether it be on a phone or computer, like forcing you to use your phone number, and it's
Yeah,
so aggravating.
nearly everything is.
Insecure.
But I mean,
Yeah.
really,
Explain that, Tom.
if you put up the fight, you can get away with it. I
Yeah.
think I have one financial type account that we're still fighting to get the phone number off, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's a long hassle. But
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know why they insist. These companies that claim to be security and privacy centric, but yeah,
Mhm.
and Apple's the same way. Apple's popped up.
Yeah.
What is your phone number? I'm like, seriously?
Yeah, but what I noticed is when you go on Apple's website and you compare it, like I use NoScript and a couple of tools that block the JavaScript and any scripts that
Yeah.
runs on the computer, and compare it to the Microsoft website or any other website, mostly, and you compare it to Apple's website, Microsoft has a whole bunch of scripts running in the
Oh, yeah.
background, while Apple only has one.
What
It
is
only
it?
has one at all. Like, there's literally nothing shady, anything. There's only apple.com and that's it. There's nothing else going out of Apple, which it is kind of pretty strange. It's kind of the only websites uh, that's actually really good in privacy versus Microsoft. So that's what I think. So at least for me, I think that Apple is privacy centric. However, you shouldn't trust them for everything because of course they have to comply with governments and other things. So,
Yeah, they're gonna do
so
that. Yeah.
yeah,
And
most likely. But at least
new legislation.
their devices themselves are secure. It's just that if you use their servers, then of course you might have some.
Yeah,
some
just be
issues.
aware
Yeah.
if you put it but the general rule, and I'll shut up. The general rule of thumb is like if it's something you really don't want anybody to have access to, probably not sync it to the cloud and keep it local on like a NAS box where you can only access it and it's password protected on your network.
Yeah.
Or better yet, like print a physical copy out, get it off your computer and off the cloud, and just put it in a lockbox and stick it in your closet. There's something to be said for locking your door and having physical security to the
Yeah.
most important documents.
Like insurance information and,
Yeah.
and things like that is just solely to you and you don't want anybody else to know
Correct.
about it because then you got hackers that might actually leak that information and that's really bad.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Let's wrap up. We just want to probably wrap up in 5-10 minutes or so, but let's wrap this up on the phone. Oh, go ahead, Leonie, and then we're going to wrap up with phone and tablet Linux type stuff. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have like 3 things to say.
Sure.
The first thing when we talked about iOS was that my mom is a pretty huge Apple fan, and she has an iPhone, and it's like a $600, $700 iPhone, and the only thing she does with it is like browsing Pinterest, using Safari, and chatting on WhatsApp, which completely defeats the purpose of having an iPhone. Like any budget Android phone can do the same task, and my mom's just like, no, I don't want to switch. And I'm like, okay, I let you go. And the other thing is about this concept of having like a kind of like client and a big sort of like mainframe approach. that was actually it was like a popular thing in the 70s when Unix was around. And from my perspective, it would be a dream if you could have like a mainframe like thing at home and then just use your ARM-based laptop to connect to your home network over
Yeah.
like some VPN and then just like work from there and have
That'd be cool.
everything like on a central position, but not like owned by a big corporation or something like a hoster like DigitalOcean or something.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's actually
That's
interesting.
That
ideal.
was the original Linux dream. It was actually just Linus Torvalds trying to access the Unix workstation at the university in Finland.
Interesting.
And the third thing I wanted to talk about was Mega, which I know Kim.com. He was actually born as Kim Schmitz in Kiel, which is the capital city of a federal state in Germany called Schleswig-Holstein. And guess what? It's like a 20-minute car ride to just go to Kiel and visit Kim.com. And actually, I did visit Kim.com a couple of years ago, like in 2014, I guess. And it was actually a pretty nice guy. He actually deserves a hug for his work. And it's pretty friendly, like cool guy. So that's Kim.com for you. So he's not like this evil guy like portrayed in the media. He's actually pretty chill, nice, chubby, cool guy. So
Mega is a really cool, slick interface. I get that. I see his personality in Mega. You know, it's
yes,
sleek and cool interface. It really is.
and
Kind of
also
Mac-like.
yeah, and also the thing about macOS design was what I had in mind was the first two things I thought was like, it looks nice and I want this on Linux. I want the exact icon themes, cursor, everything. I want just even the dock. I want it a little bit polished up and then just port it over to Linux. It looks so nice.
Okay.
Except the battery icon in the system settings that
That's
needs
just
some
a beta.
polish,
That's
but-
just the beta. That'll go away.
Yeah, I hope. And the dock is a little bit like too much on the bottom. I would like to have little padding on the bottom, so it just looks kind of more like iPad OS.
I like the direction of Big Sur, and I also like the direction of iOS 14. I think Apple is doing a bang up job lately. The last few years, they've been doing a lot better
Well,
as
if
a
they keep
company.
on
for
climbing
me.
mountains, eventually they'll have to jump off. So I say that's a good direction.
Yeah.
Mac OS
So
Himalaya.
that were my things I had to say while I was just silently listening to you.
Now, those were some very good. That was very interesting.
Absolutely.
All that was good stuff.
All
man.
right, so let's try and wrap up in about 10 minutes or so. So we'll kind of go in a decent order here, and we're going to kind of chat about current state. Do you think current state is good, bad, or like how's the current Linux phones, Linux tablets and stuff going? And do we have high hopes or are we deeply concerned? We'll go in order here, starting with World of Linux or World of whatever you are these days.
World of
Alright.
Nick.
World of Canada.
So the only thing that I am concerned is first, Android and iOS is just far more advanced than at least the Linux phones and Linux tablets like solely. So they would have to work really hard in order to have the same features as you would have on an iPhone, or you would have on an Android tablet or an iPad. And right now it's kind of there, but it's still not there, which is kind of the only thing. If it goes too slow, it might just disappear, and that's my only concern. However, if they can catch up, that's going to be a good thing, but I'm not sure about that.
I think
how it's
that
going.
what hurt the Windows Phone is that it just didn't have the app ecosystem, because the phone itself was very good. It's just the only and honestly the the Windows Store looked like the Snap Store does now, and that's why I'm critical of the Snap Store a little bit. It's a lot of unofficial software written by people that don't have anything to do with the development of that software, and that's all you found in it, and it was very interesting. Kabardashi, your thoughts?
Well, you're kind of stole my thunder there. That's what I was going to say. Is that
sorry, man.
I don't think that I don't have super high hopes for Linux phones right now, simply because they're going to run into the same issue that Microsoft ran into, which is what comes first, the phone or the app ecosystem? But you can't have an app ecosystem without a phone, so it's this catch-22 thing. The only caveat to that being is, where do you measure success? Do you measure it by market share and number of devices sold, or do you measure it in a different way? So that's that. I don't think it'll ever. I don't think it's ever going to overthrow Android or iOS simply for the simple. I mean, just for the simple fact that they have too much industrial power behind them. So they would have to have a pretty significant series of mistakes. And they would really have to rest on their laurels, and somebody in the open source community would really have to do something miraculous. But typically because it's open source, somebody's going to see it and utilize it in a proprietary fashion in some way. So I'm not particularly, I don't have high hopes myself, but I still think that for those of us who are willing to put in the effort, that it should be an option for people like us.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
I agree with most of the tail end of what you said, as far as somebody taking the open source software that's doing well on Linux phone and making something proprietary out of it, and it outselling and outpacing the current Linux phone production. I am optimistic about it. More so, I don't think it'll be widely adopted in the sense that Windows or Mac OS X will be or is today. I do actually have high hopes for it, for those nerds like us that want to have more privacy and security on our phones and not have to share everything out just to get work done, or to, recently Samsung put a auto dialer ad in the dialer as an open source.
It's the best operating system.
For nerds, I think it makes it. Yeah, I know Samsung's awful. They've become everything I hated about Apple, but worse. A lot
Click
worse.
here to call this company instead.
Apple's slowly growing on me. There's things I hate about Apple too, but yeah, I think it won't be widely adopted. I don't think it's going to be like that, but I don't think it has to be, and I don't care. It's for us, and let us have our thing, because Ubuntu certainly thinks they have to be for everyone, and you can't please everyone all of the time. Linux is Linux. If you like it, that's great. If you don't, run something else. I don't care. I don't care. I think we try to attract everybody onto the platform, and by doing that, you lose your focus, and what you were all about is floss.
Yeah, I think we need to have
something for us.
The availability, but not forcing it. Some people legitimately need to use other software. Leonie.
Right.
So what my main concerns about Linux phones is that it will just kind of like be some sort of flop. So either it will be some sort of flop like Windows Phone or like Firefox OS by solving a problem that doesn't exist. But this time it does exist, because privacy on the phones, it's a cool thing. But at the same time, it's just like having the whole like building a mobile platform involves a lot of effort in a couple of different areas. First, it's the mobile carriers, getting the mobile carriers to actually sell your phone, because the mobile carriers almost have a monopoly on everything phone related, especially like T-Mobile or Telefonica. If you get these big mobile carriers, you just almost own the world, or own the world, I would say. But to get these people, it will just either take a lot of resources and money, or they will just see it and take it. But that's unlikely to happen. Unlikely to happen because like Mozilla has like billions of dollars, and they can just push a new phone platform through. But it will just be like only the third option of all these like Apple and Googly stuff. So I don't. So my I would say my future vision for Linux phones would be, it wouldn't take all mobile platforms by storm. It will certainly reach like more market share and more success than like iOS does, which is a fork of Firefox OS, ironically. And I don't know. It's just having an ecosystem built around a mobile platform is also something that will just boost your sales on a mobile platform. And if that isn't given because you have like Android and a lot of legacy, and some Linux mobile OSs try to emulate Android legacy apps, I would say Android is a big legacy. I mean, they're compatible, but it's just like just adding another layer on top of a Linux phone is just making it more bloated and stuff. And the other thing is just integration. The Linux desktop and the Linux mobile market is, again, just fragmented. And I know there's KDE Connect, but it still isn't there yet. It needs a lot of work to actually polish up all the mobile platforms that are out there. Making so Linux on the phone is, I would say, more like in a between alpha and beta state, I would say. It's not there yet, but
Yeah.
with enough work and effort, like Mozilla poured into their own mobile platform a couple of years ago, it would basically kind of like blow up all the third options that are out there, like BlackBerry, if they're still around, KaiOS, like all the little things. So they will never, I think they will never reach the same level of like success as Android and iOS have.
Yeah, I think that you're right in that they're not going to achieve the same levels that Android or iOS will, but there's also a more dedicated user base that will prevent it from dying, especially since it's not something that the companies necessarily have to make money on because they're
Exactly.
so I think it's a better holdout. And back to the chicken and the egg, or is that the phone or the app analogy?
Right.
With that, what we need like users like me who doesn't use apps anyway to get the thing off the ground. So I was following, of course, I was one of the ones that got in on the 72-hour window to pre-order the Pine tabs. So in theory, within a couple of weeks, they will be shipping the Linux-based tablet to me, and I'll get a chance to see what that looks like, which runs, I think, UB ports. But hey, I'll take UB ports over something else.
Content.
Yeah, so we'll kind of see how it
Especially the
works.
tablet.
But for me, I'm not really looking for a phone that runs every latest and greatest application. I
Right.
need to be able to make phone calls, communicate, and get on the web browser and check my email. And that's
Communicate
why
with
I'm not a
clients.
huge. It's not a huge deal breaker for me anyway to use Lineage, even de-Googlified versions, because I don't really want all that crap on my phone anyway.
Right.
But that's kind of that. So there's random tech discussions, and we're going to need to jump off here very quick. So about 30 seconds or less. Give us your final words. We'll start with you, Leonie.
I don't know. It's just the whole technology thing is just like either like eat the legacy or just do completely new stuff. So that's most of the frustration what technology is. And I think if I would be happier if I didn't knew about a computer so much and just become a normie, because it's just IT in general is just so overblown and so bloated, and there's so many just rotating wheels, which is so confusing.
Would you like to
And
take the blue
that's
pill and go
my
back to
problem.
Normieville? Here's the blue pill. Go back to Normieville, right? I will be streaming in 50 minutes on my other channel. I'll drop a link here in the comments here in a second. So if you want to jump on over, that's my Christian channel. We're doing another section of 1 Peter. So if you are interested in such content, you jump on over there. If not, we'll see you tomorrow for the news. Mark, final words.
Thank you, everybody, for coming in, showing up, and showing out consistently. Appreciate you. You can find me at Yates Networks on YouTube and Twitter, also on mine soon. That's enough working on my channel, so stay tuned with that on the discussion tab and on Twitter and on mine soon. So
Excellent.
I'll have a Minds account. All right.
Are you going to jump on and play with Parlay as well or not? I've toyed with it.
Parlay.
It's like a new Twitter replacement.
Oh.
Yeah, look
Is
it up.
it
It's spelled like parlor. It's called parlay, technically.
That sounds
But,
fantastic.
yeah, have a look at it. I haven't examined it a lot, but I know a lot of the people that are getting banned off of Twitter are over there. So
I don't
Yeah,
like
I'm not a big
Parlay.
social media fan, but something like that was,
That's right.
yeah. It's good for business is why.
Absolutely. Yeah, there you go. Tech.
We didn't talk about the other CPU in the room, which is not power efficient in the least, but is super powerful, and that's IBM's Power 9 architecture, where you can get a quad-core processor for $500. The motherboard is $1,500, and that doesn't include the $200 CPU fan. That's what
Where's
I
my
want.
credit card? Where's my
I was
credit
about
card?
to say, man, somebody needs to hook me up, man. I'll start a Patreon just for this.
Apple credit card.
Yeah,
Yeah,
get my-
put it on the
get my
Apple card.
22% interest rate.
All right, World
I keep
Linux.
saying that
What's
damn
your
ad.
final?
So, I guess the only thing is that technology can really be complicated, especially if you don't know what you're looking for. So, all these years, mostly I've been using Windows or switching back from Windows to Linux and then Linux to Windows. But then recently, especially with buying more of Mac and everything, I started to just use it, all of them. Mac OS, Linux, and even a little bit of Windows, and trying to put that all together. It's difficult, but it is possible, and that's my workflow, and it just works really well for me. So instead of only using one platform, just use a multi-platform system instead of only using one. That's my
multiple
final
platforms. I'm behind that.
words. Yeah.
All right, I think we will wrap this up here. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. This channel, tomorrow, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the weekly news roundup. About 45 minutes, I'll be on my Christian channel tonight, and I put the link up there in the chat window. So look for that, and we will see you guys next time.
First Peter.